Today, we're talking about men's basketball. Payday Douglas possibly earning a starting receiver spot and wrapping up our coverage of the Gators in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, only here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We're available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. Happy Tuesday. I'm Brandon Olson, Twitter, WNS_Brandon, Whole Nine Sports for written work. We're going to chop that up a little bit, make it a little bit quicker. So we're rolling through that. But we're going to talk about men's basketball to start today's show. And I realize that's usually not something I start the show with, but I felt like it. And guess what? It's my show. I get to pick what's on there. The Gators men's basketball team is 15-8 on the year, which, it doesn't sound too bad. 15-8 is not bad necessarily. It's bad when you consider what the Gator standard should be, but in general, they're a possible, or they should be, a March Madness team if they continue winning ways. They are 8-8 since their 7-0 start, and some of those losses have been, expected. We had the Auburn loss, which we get a chance at them again in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks now. So we got the Auburn loss. We've got the Oklahoma loss wasn't that bad, but they got losses like Texas Southern and Ole Miss the first time. And it's like, well, those are losses that shouldn't be happening for this Gators team if you actually want to compete. But on the up and up side of things, Colin Castleton got injured before. That's not the positive part of it. Colin Castleton got injured, and the team kind of improved a little bit and then quickly didn't. And it was like, okay, now we got you. But, the team has managed to stay healthy and afloat. It was grim for a while when Colin Castleton got hurt because it was like, hey man, like we don't know how long he's out is pretty much what we were told. All we were told was the injury was significant. That's all it was. It was a significant shoulder injury where we were given no timetable for recovery or return. And a lot of us were just like, well, is he coming back at all? And here he is. He's back with a little less than a month remaining in the season before, tournaments start and all that fun stuff. But Colin Castleton is back. He was here this past Saturday was his return against Ole Miss, and it was actually a game that they beat Ole Miss in. And the game was a fun one in the second half. It was kind of like the Oklahoma State game where the first half was not fun because the Gators were down a considerable amount at the end of the first half or at halftime, whatever you want to say, but had a strong second half. Although this one was a little bit different because it felt like the Gators got dominated in the first half. It was just 30-21. So yeah, a 9-point lead is nothing to throw an insane fit over, but it's more only scoring 21. We know the defense is there. We're the Florida Gators. We know the defense is there, but only scoring 21 points in the first half when you get your star player back. That's pretty disheartening, really. And I get it, it's his first game back, and he played fine. But it was his first game back. There have been other injuries and lineup changes and all these things happening. But 21 points is very, very awful in the first half. It's just pitiful. The Gators then came out in the second half and absolutely dominated, I think would be a good term to use. They absolutely dominated Ole Miss in the second half. I mean, Ole Miss scored 18 points in the second. The Gators only scored 27, but Ole Miss scored 18, and that is defensive domination if I have ever seen it. And that's why it's like, yeah, well, I mean, this offense still has a lot to figure out, but defensively, this team just got right back to cooking and really hitting on all cylinders. Like Colin Castleton, he finished the game with 17 points and 7 rebounds, which is pretty much what we've come to expect from him when he was healthy before that shoulder injury, and he got back to his shot blocking ways. He had 3 blocks. It wasn't the 6 that we love seeing from him, but 3 blocks. He kind of, you can tell when he's on the court that this team is just different. Not in the same way as like me saying the women's basketball team is built different, but this team is just better with Colin Castleton on the court. Offensively, this team struggles either way. So that's, that is what it is. But defensively, this team is just a much more cohesive unit and a much more fluid unit when Colin Castleton is on the court, because he's just such a defensive leader, and he's just a commander of this defense. When he's on that court, he's changing shots if he's not blocking them, and he's doing all these things that other players can't bring to the table, because Colin Castleton is still very much one of the better big men in college basketball, especially defensively, and especially as a shot contester, again, whether it's blocking or changing the shots. And in overtime, it was close for the first minute, and then the Gators really started to separate. And from that point, it was just Ole Miss. It was just Ole Miss playing catch up, really, because it was for the first minute and 15 seconds of overtime, there weren't really scores happening on either side, and then Florida started really chipping it and kind of just separating themselves and leaving Ole Miss to say, wait, no, wait, please stop, come back. And it was just a wrap at that point. Tyree Appleby, I feel like he was shooting with his eyes closed half the time. I feel like he was just like, yep, and just putting it up at that point, because it was bad. He went 1 for 10 shooting from the free throw line. He was great, but when 1 for 10 shooting, but what really separated him was his playmaking, because Tyree Appleby, I mean, he had a double-double. He shot 1 for 10, but he had a double-double with 11 points. And the more impressive thing were his 10 assists, because Tyree Appleby had 10 assists, and that's a great number to have at any level of basketball. But especially when you consider this game was not a very not a display of playmaking ability throughout. He had 10 assists. Tyree Appleby had 10 assists. The rest of the game combined, both teams had 11 assists. The Gators had 3 assists outside of Tyree Appleby, and Ole Miss had 8 assists out just in general. So Tyree Appleby just put on a playmaking clinic, which you didn't see anywhere else really in this game. So that was big for him, and I'm looking forward to seeing him and Colin Castleton kind of getting to work a little more and see what can happen with a true just primary ball handler role for Tyree Appleby. The Gators' next game is tomorrow, where they host the 6-17 Georgia Bulldogs. But don't dismiss them like that, because 6-17 is bad. But at the same time, this is a team, or a Georgia team, that just lost by 2 points to the Auburn Tigers. And Auburn, I don't know if you know this, but are a pretty damn good basketball team this year. And I know, because I just had to spend a week with Zach Blackerby, who's the host of Locked on Auburn, and I got to hear it incessantly. Which, by the way, Zach on Auburn is dope. Just because I got to be there when Zach interviewed him, and it was really cool. But yeah, 6-17 Georgia Bulldogs, they're not really a pushover team right here. So Florida Gators, you've also been known to kind of play down to competition at times, so it's not an easy win by any stretch. Anybody else make money this weekend? Because I know I didn't, and I didn't make money last week, although I did come home and I did make money on Sunday. I'll say that. I made money Sunday. That was fun. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your sports action. Obviously, Florida's men's basketball team has been really screwing me over. Women's basketball team has been insanely profitable for me, so that is awesome. But BetOnline.net even covers award shows, TV shows, and reality TV with real-time updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine. It's the best way to place your bets, and it's 100% free to sign up. Head to the website or use your mobile device, which is how I like to bet, because I mean that's I love their mobile site. I'm not gonna lie to you. BetOnline.net, where the game starts. Also, a quick reminder that it's Super Bowl week, so we've got Locked On NFL podcast, Locked On Bengals, and Locked On Rams, all in LA, covering the game down on Radio Row right now, brought to you by Get Upside. So just make sure to check those out. And now we're going to talk about Payday Douglas, who is someone who Payday Douglas obviously is a 3 or 4 star receiver, depending on which platform you're losing. I know On3 and 24/7 have him as a 3-star, and I know that ESPN is listing him as a 4-star. So it kind of depends on where you're looking. but he is a commit to the Florida Gators, and I'm excited for him. I didn't think he would be a Florida Gator. I was so certain that he was either going back to Baylor. That was kind of what I thought would happen. Maybe go back to USC, but that didn't happen, thankfully, because he's someone who he previously was committed to Baylor, and then he decommitted, and then he committed to USC, and then he decommitted. But especially with the USC one, like he said that he was committed to Baylor, got his offer from USC, and he was like, "This is a dream school for me." They're kind of wide receiver U, so big for him because obviously he wants to go pro. And then Lincoln Riley happened, and I gotta give Payday Douglas gotta give him credit. Decommitted and went where he thought would be best for him, which is with the same receivers coach that was at USC that has helped them become wide receiver U, which I disagree with, by the way. I've said prior to the season, I was like, I think Florida is wide receiver U. They don't put out a ton of superstars, but they put guys into the NFL consistently. So I think they were wide receiver U. And now he's coming to Gainesville, where Kiri Colbert, who is the wide receivers coach at USC and was recruiting Payday Douglas, is now the Florida Gators wide receiver coach. So it's like, well, it was pretty seamless where you've got a university who, the coaching staff wants you. The wide receiver coach that just offered you is now offering you at his new job. You know that the university can put players into the NFL because they've done it. Look at even in recent years. Just look at receivers from recent years. You've got last year, Kadarius Toney, first round pick. You've got Van Jefferson the year before that was a second round pick. And you've also got these rotational guys coming in where you've got Freddie Swain with the Seattle Seahawks, Tyree Cleveland with the Denver Broncos. You've got Trayvon Grimes got injured. He signed with the Philadelphia Eagles as an undrafted free agent. And then I believe tore his ACL and was out for the season. So he's looking for a spot right now. You've got all these guys who are in the NFL and consistently get to the NFL from Florida. And it's like, well, really, are they not wide receiver U? Because I feel like we are. But looking at Payday Douglas's future here, I'll say he's a former quarterback, so there's trick play potential there. But he's got great size. He's 6'3", and he's gonna add weight also. He's 6'3", and he's gonna play. He's gonna add weight, and he already plays bigger than he looks because he looks kind of wiry, but he plays strong. Like he plays strong, catching the ball. Contested catches when he's wide open. He's a nice hands catcher, so it's not really a big concern. It's just getting hit in the body. And like I've said, with all of our quarterbacks, sans Jack Miller, all of our potential starting quarterbacks, sans Jack Miller, I think that they benefit from having these big-bodied receivers because, well, they've they've struggled mightily with accuracy. So I think when you have Anthony Richardson adding a big receiver here, and when you have Emory Jones adding a big receiver here, I think you really help yourself because Caleb Douglas is someone who's got a big body. He can make these catches. And look, I no problem admitting he's a little rough around the edges when it comes to technique. But he's working with Kiri Colbert. That's going to be his wide receivers coach. So I think that he can, develop a lot. He's got an insane ceiling. And as far as I'm concerned, at least one of these top 4 receiver spots are available in Gainesville. That's what I'm thinking. Because obviously, I think that on the outside we'll have Xavier Henderson and Justin Shorter starting at the outside receivers, and probably Trent Whittemore in the slot. And I've taken time to talk about Marcus Burke, who I'm like, well, he's a speed demon he's got a big body and he could be the guy. But and Jaquavion Frazier's also, he could play. We know this. I'm just saying Caleb Douglas could earn himself a spot in that rotation early on where maybe he won't be a starting receiver, but he could be someone who is it also depends what you consider a starting wide receiver, because if he's wide receiver 4 and he plays a lot, he could be considered a starter at that point. So it's something like that. But Caleb Douglas could be someone who plays a lot. I think he's got the physicality. He's shown the physicality where he could probably seamlessly transition into a big slot role where he's going to be blocking in a run-heavy offense. And he's going to be, I'll say, he's not going to be a massive vertical threat. I don't think he's got the long speed for that right now. But again, once he's working with this coaching staff, they can kind of fix his running style, fix his route running, and make him a little bit better as a deep threat. But I think right now he's more of a big body, reliable hands catcher. And I think that that's going to be huge, especially for a team that, look, they're going to want to run the ball. It gets a little hard to run the ball in the red zone. That's why you've got those big-bodied receivers that you can throw it to in traffic and rely on them to come down. And it's also like I mentioned before, like he's a former quarterback, and I don't mean, oh, he was a quarterback in middle school. I mean 2 years ago he was playing quarterback. So this is a very new position to him, but he's already shown the natural hands, and that's big. And he's already shown his willingness to go up and compete. And I like him, and I want to see him get some playing time. And the things that he needs help with, with route running and positioning and just those little nuances. Those are all things that are going to come with time playing the position, which he hasn't had yet. He's done it for 2 years. That's it. He's barely played receiver in the grand scheme of things. So he's got plenty of time to develop and become this. And I think getting him playing time wouldn't be the worst idea, especially when you're on a team where it's like, well, we want to run the ball. Putting a big body dude out there might be best for this team. So I don't know. I want to see Caleb Douglas get playing time early and get playing time consistently, because I think he could be big for this offense now and in the long run once he's got some more experience under his belt. Today's episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models of cars, it's pretty impossible for your local car chain, the auto parts store, to really just help you out. Like, why endure pointless and sometimes intimidating questions of, is your Odyssey an LX or an EX? Like, and wait behind the counter while the person there is just trying to help you, and it takes forever just for them to choose whichever brand their warehouse carries, not necessarily the one that's best for you. You got computers with access to explore the easiest website, and I do mean easy. Like I've said multiple times, I don't know a damn thing about cars or about my car even. So if I need something, yeah, my family could fix it up. They're more handy than I am, but I gotta still order it and buy it. So I go to rockauto.com. And I mean, look, if you use it, should write Locked On in there, how did you hear about us box, so that they know exactly who sent you there. With amazing selection, reliably low prices, the easiest website that you'll ever find, and all the parts your car will ever need. That is rockauto.com. To wrap up today's show, we are talking one more time about the Senior Bowl. And I say one more time, but I got some guests lined up where we're probably going to talk about the Senior Bowl and talk about these players specifically at the Senior Bowl. So yes, Senior Bowl last time for me individually, probably. But yeah, that's where we're at. But I'm starting with the guy that I wanted to talk about so bad, and I've been talking about so much, and I want to keep talking about so much. It's Dameon Pierce, who is a beast. And by the way, got to meet him in person. That dude's lightning in the bottle. I'll tell you that. I saw him in Mobile, and someone that works for the Senior Bowl was like, "Hey, Damien, can you hold this for me?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course, no problem at all." He was just very nice. Got to speak to him for legitimately like 30 seconds. But he was so dope. He just busy schedule down there. Like I was talking to him, and someone from the Senior Bowl was like, "Hey, you got to walk and talk, because he's got a very limited window to eat right now." So schedule's crazy there. But Damien Pierce, one of the things that I like to look for at the Senior Bowl, especially with running backs, is pass protection, because that's something that it's hard to get better at. He's improved a lot, but it's hard to get better at pass protection, because that's got to be something that's ingrained in you, that willingness to make those plays in pass pro. And once you're already in your early 20s and you're going to the NFL, it's hard to change a mindset like that. But Damien Pierce and a lot of the running backs in Mobile this year were great, but Damien Pierce dominated in pass protection, which we knew we would do. It was Tuesday. We did the Locked On live stream where we all went on. I was the only college dude there, but we all went on and we talked about the Senior Bowl and what we saw. And Tony Wiggins from Locked On Jags, who I'm sure some of you guys listen to at least, he talked about one of the easiest ways for a young running back to get off the field is to struggle in pass protection. And I told him, I was like, look, we didn't see pass protection drills today, but tomorrow or the day after we will, and Dameon Pierce will thrive there. He will dominate. And he's been able to show that he's not just a powerful dude, whether it's pass protection or as a runner. He clocked the highest speed in the Senior Bowl game. Dameon Pierce ran 20.66 miles per hour at his top speed on Saturday. in the Senior Bowl. He did a fantastic job all week. He struggled a little bit day one as a pass catcher. I saw him have at least one drop on a swing or on a screen, but it is what it is. It happens every now and then. So I think he solidified himself as the not the top back in the draft, but the top back at the Senior Bowl. I think he is head and shoulders above everybody else. And he was the most well-rounded too. There were guys who, ton of power, but didn't have that speed. Were able to catch the ball, but not able to pass protect. And at that point, what's the use of just play slot receiver if you can't pass protect and you can catch the ball? I mean, and I thought about this the other day, and I want to continue talking about it. I would love to see Dameon Pierce in a place like Tennessee, with the Titans, obviously not with the Vols. Look, he won't be the starter, or at least he won't be the starter right away. But he's also someone who he could step in and shoulder the load, because Derrick Henry, we saw him take a significant injury, and a lot of it is because of that wear and tear that he's picked up carrying, or not even carrying, being the offense in Tennessee. So adding Dameon Pierce, he's a physical runner. He can still give you that. He can come in on passing downs and contribute as a receiver and a pass protector and give Derrick Henry a little bit of a break. I mean, look, I'm just saying, I played defense. I've done that thing where it's like, I'm making a business decision. Derrick Henry is someone that I would not want to get in front of. Dameon Pierce is also someone that I would not want to get in front of. I think that when you've got just a physical runner and then a physical runner, I think that both of those guys would just put in work together, and defenses in general would get demolished. So, I mean, I'm a big fan of adding Dameon Pierce to a backfield that already has Derrick Henry, and just saying, we want to run the ball 35 times a game, but we can't do it all with Derrick Henry. Why not bring in a running back who's got very little wear and tear on his tires and bring him in? So Dameon Pierce, I mean, and I know all 32 teams were there, and I know the Titans are probably looking for a running back this year. So why not be Dameon Pierce? Like, I just want to see him there, and I got no skin in the Titans game. I just want to see him be great. And the other Gator that was in Mobile, Zachary Carter. And I think that it was an overall dominant week for defensive linemen last week. You look at Jermaine Johnson, who just went off. Myjai Sanders had a great week, especially playing kind of out of position. So that was big for him. And Zachary Carter, I think, kind of just got lost in the shuffle. But he also had a great week. I think it was just so dominant for so many defensive linemen that's why we didn't hear his name so much, because the edge defenders were demolishing these offensive linemen. And one-on-ones, he really got the opportunity to thrive. And I think that's big for Zachary Carter. Like, he got to show, which we knew, that he's a good power rusher. We knew that. And look, he didn't show that he's a great finesse rusher either in the one-on-ones, but he did show he's a great power rusher. And while he did overpower opponents, he did it with technique and skill, instead of just being like, me big, run through. He got his hands inside their pads. He pushed them back. He drove them back, and he bent them, and he bent them backwards there. So I think Zachary Carter, I think he did a great job of showing that he's capable of winning those one-on-ones. And that's big, because ideally in the NFL, we're going to see you take on one-on-ones. You'll see double teams every now and then. We know that, but usually the premier pass rusher on the team takes on double teams. Or, if you've got a giant nose tackle, he'll take on double teams. And that's fine, because the goal is to get one-on-ones throughout. And also, one-on-ones are becoming more prevalent with all the defenses that rotate and show blitz and don't blitz and do whatever they want to do. But they're creating one-on-ones. And Zachary Carter has proven in front of all 32 NFL teams that he can win in those one-on-one situations. And that's bigger than I can even express. Like, the senior, and I spoke to him for a little bit also. He is going to demolish the interview process with NFL teams. Like just talking to him, like, he is going to kill it. Like, I know that. Like, he's going to be a freak. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Florida Gators. For Locked On Gators, I am Brandon Olson. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all of my written work with Whole Line Sports. That is WHOLENINE Sports. And I will see you all tomorrow.